The place felt almost too perfect. It was too clean, too new. The smell wasn't good nor bad. The linings and drawings on the wall were perfect. Every centimeter of the structure was perfect, apart from that single piece of stone sticking out of the wall. My heart raced as I stared at the protruding stone. It seemed out of place in the sea of pristine perfection that was the mausoleum. I knew instinctively that there was something hidden behind that brick, something that wasn't meant to be discovered. I hesitated for a moment, the tragic organ music echoing in my ears. The rule never stated anything against me entering the mausoleum unless I heard noises coming from within. Fortunately for me, the only noises in this structure were my own. Either way, my curiosity got the better of me. With a mixture of fear and determination, I pushed on the brick, feeling slight resistance before it gave way, and slid into the wall. The stone revealed a small compartment, and inside it lay an old, leather-bound book. Gingerly picked it up, my heart pounding in my chest. The pages were yellowed with age, and the cover felt worn and weathered. The title was embossed in faded gold letters, Chronicles of Necropolis. I hesitated, my fingers hovering over the book. The sense of danger was palpable, and I felt as if I were on the precipice of uncovering something far beyond my mortal comprehension. I knew that reading this book will probably reveal secrets that were meant to stay buried, but my curiosity was insatiable. With trembling hands, I opened the book to its first page and began to read. The entries were written in an elegant cursive script, dated back over a few decades. The tales within spoke of rituals, sacrifices, and a pact made with dark forces in exchange for wealth, power, and longevity. As I read, I began to realize the true nature of Necropolis. It was not just a cemetery, it was a nexus of supernatural energy, a place where the boundary between the living and the dead was thin. The Abaddon family, driven by greed and ambition, had made a pact with an entity known as the Keeper of Souls. This entity granted them the means to accumulate wealth and power in exchange for the souls of the deceased buried within the cemetery. Over time, the Abaddons had used the souls to prolong their lives, ensuring their immortality while causing suffering to those whose remains were bound to Necropolis. The rituals conducted in the chapel were not just for show. They were part of a larger design to maintain the link between the living and the dead, to harness the energy of the souls and fuel their twisted desires. Eventually, not enough souls were available to be harnessed by the Keeper of Souls, so he took most of the family's souls and only left Molly's alive, badly bruised and malnourished, as a warning for others to heed. The land Necropolis once stood on was eventually bought back by someone who reconstructed and reopened the cemetery. The book doesn't say who that person is. The more I read, the more I realize the magnitude of the darkness that had enveloped Necropolis. The weeping girl I had encountered, the apparitions, and the haunting melody of the organ. They were all connected to the malevolent power that lingered within the cemetery. As I delved deeper into the pages, I learned of the curse that had been placed upon the Abaddon bloodline. The curse ensured that they could never leave Necropolis, bound to the very place they had profaned. The Keeper of Souls had turned them into eternal guardians of the cemetery, cursed to protect the dark secret they had unleashed. My heart raced as the truth settled over me like a suffocating shroud. I had unwittingly stepped into a battle between the forces of darkness and those who sought to free the trapped souls. The warning I had received, the veiled threats, it was all a desperate attempt to keep the truth hidden. With every page I turned, I realized the magnitude of my role in this story. I was not just an observer. I was a potential disruptor of the twisted balance that had been maintained for generations. I could be the key to freeing the souls trapped within Necropolis, or I could be the catalyst for even greater suffering, or I could also be the next to join the suffering. My mind raced, my heart pounding in my chest as I read further into the Chronicles of Necropolis. The truth was like a weight on my shoulders, and I felt the gravity of the decision I had to make. I had a hard choice to make. A choice that could determine the fate of the souls trapped within Necropolis, and my own destiny as well. Would I risk my sanity, my life, and my soul to free those who once rested easily? My heart sank as I thought of my options. No matter what I did, I had to do it soon. Hastily, I took as many pictures of the pages of the book as I could before I returned it to where I originally found it, making sure to place the stone hiding in its place as well. I then left the mausoleum and locked the door behind me before returning to the guardhouse. All the while the organ inside the chapel played a glum tune that echoed within my head. As the night wore on, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that the very darkness itself was alive with hidden eyes. The words of the book echoed in my mind, the stories of rituals and curses. I had become a part of something beyond my understanding, a battle between supernatural forces that I had never believed in. I glanced at the clock. My heart sank as the minutes ticked closer to 2 a.m. The dread grew within me, and my mind raced with thoughts of the weeping girl and the disfigured man. Rules 5 and 6 played out in my head, and I knew that my actions could have dire consequences. As expected, right as the clock ticked 2 a.m., a soft knock on the door of the guardhouse made my heart jump. I hesitated, unsure of what I would find on the other side. I slowly approached the door, my hand trembling as I reached for the handle. With a deep breath, I swung the door open, revealing the figure before me. It was the weeping girl, just like on my first shift, her face obscured by tears, her sobs echoing in the stillness of the night. She looked at me with pleading eyes, and my heart ached at the sight of her torment. I had a choice to make, a choice that could alter the course of this night. Following the rules had brought me this far, but now I stood at a crossroads. Rule 5 instructed me to lead her to the mausoleum, to unlock the door and let her in. But what if there was another way? What if I could break the cycle, defy the darkness that had ensnared her and so many others? The organ music continued its mournful melody, the haunting notes growing louder in my ears. Time seemed to stand still as I grappled with my decision. My heart ached for her suffering, but the book's revelations warned of the dangers that lay within Necropolis. I decided to do as the rules said. I took the girl to the mausoleum, opened the door for her, and locked it after making sure she went in. I made my way back to the guardhouse while the organ subsided, and all I could hear was myself. I felt dreadful. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was a pawn in a malevolent game, my every move orchestrated by forces beyond my control. The air in the guardhouse felt heavy, oppressive, as if the very walls were closing in on me. I sat there, my thoughts a jumbled mess, the weight of my choices pressing down on me. The night dragged on, and the sense of unease never left me. The minutes stretched into hours, and as the first light of dawn began to break over the horizon, I knew that my shift was coming to an end. Yet the nightmare I am trapped in wore on. At last, 6 a.m. came, and I was making my way to the entrance of the cemetery when something came to my attention. The bald man stood right outside the chapel. He held something in his hand as he looked directly at me. It was the book. He held the book I found hidden inside the mausoleum, and he was staring right at me. I made an attempt to not notice the book and nodded at him before turning to the entrance of the cemetery and unlocking it. I opened the gates of the cemetery, got in my car, and left to go home. On the drive home, I felt like I did something wrong. Only when I arrived back home did I remember. Rule 9. By 6 a.m., open the gates of the cemetery and wait for the next security guard to take over. Your shift is not over until the next guard arrives or until it's 8 a.m. Do not leave the cemetery until the next guard arrives or it's 8 a.m. Check the time. It was 6:31 a.m. I broke a rule, and with each heartbeat, my fear grew stronger. The clock read 6:33 a.m., and I was trapped in a web of uncertainty. There was no one to turn to, no clear path forward. They say that facing your demons is a brave act, but a lot of times it feels like a foolish one. Still, I couldn't ignore the gnawing feeling that I had to confront this head-on. Back at Necropolis, I parked my car near the gates, my mind racing with thoughts of what might come next. The air was thick with tension as I stepped into the cemetery once more. Perhaps they were already aware of my transgression, and now I had to face the consequences. Or maybe I could somehow bargain for a chance at peace, a twisted negotiation with the forces that held me captive. The familiar surroundings of Necropolis loomed, both ominous and strangely welcoming. Rule number 10 echoed in my mind. If no guard arrives by 8 a.m., you are free to leave, but not before you go into the chapel where you will find the bald man from earlier. Tell him that your shift is over, but no guard has taken over yet. Once he acknowledges that, you are free to leave until your next shift begins. I had departed the cemetery earlier than scheduled, leaving my post vacant. Could this be my lifeline? A way to connect with the enigmatic bald man? With a mix of hope and trepidation, I entered the chapel. The door was already open, inviting me into its shadowed depths. And there he was, the bald man, a sentinel in this twisted realm. Silently, I approached him, his back turned as if he was waiting for me. The intensity of the moment pushed my heartbeat into my throat. Each step weighted with uncertainty. I was ready for anything, ready to fight or flee if necessary. But then, as if sensing my presence, he rose from his seat, turned to face me, and his inscrutable eyes locked onto mine. His silent command passed between us, and I followed him to the door of the chapel. What choice did I have? I was drawn into his orbit, a player in a game I still didn't fully understand. The tension was palpable as I walked in his wake, the weight of his gaze heavy on my back. There was a shared understanding that words were unnecessary. The bald man's presence spoke volumes. Through the doorway and into the mausoleum we went, our footsteps barely audible against the backdrop of silence. He led me to a specific spot, a wall that held hidden secrets. With a practiced motion, he pressed a stone, revealing a hidden compartment that housed the book, the same book that taught me of the wretched truth behind this place. He took out a pen and began to write. The scratching of the pen on paper seemed to echo throughout the mausoleum, a sound both mundane and otherworldly. The finality of his actions weighed heavily on me, the anticipation nearly unbearable. And then, as the last stroke of the pen met the paper, he handed me the book, what would later become a guide to my uncertain fate, my path illuminated by his cryptic words. I held the book as if it were a lifeline, my fingers trembling against the pages that now held my destiny. The words written there pulled me in, unraveling the mystery that had gripped Necropolis for so long. The bald man's guidance was stark and direct, a beacon in the enveloping darkness. Shiver ran down my spine as I read, realizing that my defiance had shaken the curse's foundations. The Keeper of Souls, a malevolent entity feasting on fear and suffering, was now vulnerable. The bald man's instructions were clear. 3 objects hidden within Necropolis held the key to ending the curse. A ritual, a confrontation with the Keeper. It was a daunting task laid out before me. And yet, hope glimmered in his written words, a fragile promise that the tormented souls could find their salvation, and I would be set free from this place. The bald man's message warned of the shadows that would conspire against me, and the Keeper's determination to thwart my efforts. Trust was a luxury I couldn't afford, and my resolve had to remain unshaken. The key he handed me afterward felt cold in my hand, its weight a reminder of the responsibility I now carried. His final words were etched into my mind, a declaration of my irrevocable connection to the cursed Necropolis. The crypt beckoned, its darkness promising both answers and challenges. Where can I find this crypt? Asked, determination in my voice. The bald man walked over to the sarcophagus furthest away from the door and opened the lid with ease. To my amazement, there was a ladder leading down, beneath the mausoleum and into the crypt. Eventually, as if sensing my hesitation, the bald man turned away, his figure disappearing into the outside of the mausoleum. I was left standing there, clutching the book and the key, knowing that I was now bound to a destiny that was intertwined with the very fabric of Necropolis. The bald man's writing etched itself into my mind as I stood before the open sarcophagus, its dark depths beckoning me. The weight of the book and the key in my hands felt both comforting and ominous. I knew that there was no turning back now. I had chosen to face the darkness head-on, to challenge the Keeper of Souls and break the curse that had plagued Necropolis for so long. With a determined breath, took a step forward and descended the ladder into the crypt. After a long descent, I was greeted by a metal door with enchanting carvings carved on it. Used the key to open the gate. Beyond the gate, the air was damp and musty, the walls lined with ancient stone shelves holding ornate coffins. Dim torchlight flickered, casting eerie shadows that danced across the walls. The crypt seemed like a place forgotten by time, a hidden sanctuary of secrets and whispers. I followed the path, the sound of my footsteps echoing in the chamber. The crypt was vast, and I could feel the weight of history pressing down on me. The journey was a mix of anticipation and unease, but I knew that each step I took brought me closer to the first of the three objects I needed to break the curse. Eventually, I reached the heart of the crypt. A circular chamber with a pedestal at its center. The pedestal held an object that seemed out of place amidst the gloomy surroundings. A polished silver amulet, intricately engraved with symbols and patterns. Its soft glow seemed to ward off the darkness, offering a glimmer of hope. I approached the amulet with cautious reverence, the book's words echoing in my mind. This was the first object I needed. As I picked up the amulet, a surge of energy coursed through me, as if the amulet's power resonated with mine. I felt a connection to something ancient and powerful, a connection that would aid me on my quest to confront the Keeper of Souls. The path ahead was still uncertain, and the challenges that awaited me were undoubtedly formidable. But I had taken the first step, and I held the key to unlocking the curse's grip on Necropolis. As I held the amulet in my hand, a sense of purpose filled my heart. The weeping girl, the tormented souls, this was their chance for salvation, and I was determined to be their beacon of hope. With the amulet in my possession, and both the key and the book now at my side, I turned to leave the crypt and ascend the ladder back to the mausoleum above. The journey was far from over, and the Keeper of Souls would not relinquish its hold easily. But I was no longer alone in this battle. I carried the strength of the souls that longed for release, the guidance of the bald man, and the determination to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As I emerged from the crypt, the mausoleum's quiet ambience greeted me once more. The book, the key to the crypt, and the amulet were now my companions, tangible reminders of the path I had chosen. Outside, the sunlight cast long shadows as the world continued its daily rhythm, unaware of the hidden struggles within Necropolis. I knew that the battle against the curse had just begun, and that the shadows would conspire, the Keeper would resist, and danger would lurk around every corner. But I was prepared to face whatever darkness awaited me. The crypt was only the beginning, a symbol of the journey that would lead me deeper into the heart of Necropolis, towards a confrontation that would determine the fate of the trapped souls and my own. With renewed determination, I emerged from the mausoleum and once again found myself walking toward the chapel. The amulet in my possession pulsed with an otherworldly energy, guiding me toward the second object that would aid me in my quest. The book's instructions were clear, hidden within the old chapel, guarded by a puzzle only the chosen could solve, was the key to unlocking the Keeper's lair. The path ahead was fraught with uncertainty, but I had come too far to turn back now. As I walked through the labyrinthine paths of Necropolis, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Shadows seemed to dance at the edges of my vision, and whispers brushed against my ears like a chilling wind. The bald man's words echoed in my mind. Shadows would conspire against me. I tightened my grip on the amulet and pressed forward, determined to unravel the mysteries of this cursed place. Finally, I stood before the ancient chapel, its daunting facade weathered by time. The open doorway loomed before me. Took a deep breath and walked in. The amulet's energy seemed to resonate with the chapel, assuring me that I was on the right path. Stepping into the chapel, the air heavy with the weight of history, I saw torches lining the walls, casting a warm glow that danced across the ancient interior. At the back end of the room stood an altar, upon which rested a tarnished silver mirror. Its surface was clouded, as if holding secrets within its depths. The mirror was framed by engravings, each telling a story of its own. With the book in one hand and the amulet in the other, I approached the mirror. As I gazed into its surface, my reflection wavered, and another scene began to unfold. A spectral figure, shrouded in ethereal light, appeared before me. The figure raised its hand, pointing towards the amulet in my hand. Suddenly, the amulet began to pulsate, emitting a dark red glow that beckoned me to wear it. Hesitantly, I placed the amulet around my neck. It then emitted a bright green glow, resonating with my energy. It made me feel rejuvenated, bestowing upon me a surge of energy unlike any I had felt before. The figure inside the mirror then pointed towards the wall right behind me. I walked over to the wooden wall, studying the engravings enchanted upon it. Suddenly, an area of the wall opened up, revealing a small hidden compartment. Inside the compartment was a small ornate box. Within this box, I found a key and a photo. Examining the photo more closely, I discovered a black and white portrait of a young woman whose facial features bore an uncanny resemblance to Molly Abaddon. My heart raced as I made a realization. The woman in the picture, Molly Abaddon, and the weeping girl bore a striking resemblance. It was undeniable. A chill ran down my spine as I grasped the significance of this discovery. Could Molly Abaddon be actively connected to the curse plaguing Necropolis? Could the weeping girl be a past version of her? This was either a theory or a revelation. Yet either way, I felt a new layer of complexity added to my mission. Beside the photograph, the key rested in the ornate box, seemingly waiting for its purpose to be fulfilled. The book's guidance echoed in my mind, urging me to continue on this path, to unlock the secrets hidden deep within Necropolis. With the amulet around my neck, its glow vibrant, and the key in my hand, turned back towards the altar. The spectral figure within the mirror seemed to nod in approval. The mirror itself emitted a soft, ethereal light, illuminating the chapel's interior and revealing engravings and symbols previously concealed in the shadows. The room seemed to come alive with energy as I approached the altar once more. The engravings on the mirror's frame glowed, forming intricate patterns that intertwined with the amulet's radiance. It was a puzzle, a connection between the amulet, the mirror, and the hidden key. As I held the amulet towards the mirror, the light intensified, projecting an image onto the wall, the image of Molly Abaddon. I watched in awe as the image transformed, unveiling a sequence of symbols and shapes that appeared to be a key to unlocking the next step of my journey. The book's guidance echoed once more, directing me to decipher the pattern and unveil the path ahead. Many minutes passed as I meticulously studied the patterns, the symbols, and the amulet's glow. It was a dance of light and shadows, a puzzle demanding patience and insight. As the sun cast a warm glow through the chapel's windows, I finally deciphered the pattern. The sequence of symbols pointed towards a specific area of the chapel floor. With excitement and anticipation, I moved to the indicated spot and pressed down. A section of the floor gave way, revealing a hidden compartment below. Inside this compartment, I found a box that required a key to open. Using the key I had found earlier, I opened the box. Within lay a weathered leather-bound journal, the missing piece to this arcane mystery. I opened the journal, and as I began to read the entries within, A sense of sorrow and understanding washed over me. The journal belonged to the Abaddon family, chronicling their lives from the moment they first set foot in our town. Their anguish, pain, and longing were etched onto the pages, a testament to the curse they had brought upon themselves and this place. The journal detailed their lives and their connection to the Keeper of Souls. It contained incantations, rituals, and information about the Keeper's lair, knowledge that would be crucial for the final confrontation. Inside the journal was a sketch of a large tree, with the words "Lair of the Keeper" written beneath it. With the journal in hand and the amulet still glowing around my neck, I felt a profound connection to the Abaddon family story. There was a connection bridging the gap between the past and the present, a link binding me to the fate of Necropolis and the souls it held captive. As I closed the journal, the spectral figure within the mirror seemed to smile, an acknowledgement of the progress I had made. The mirror's glow gradually faded, and the chapel returned to its quiet, ancient ambience. The figure vanished into a mist within the reflection, and the engravings and symbols on the frame receded, leaving no trace of the solved puzzle. With the photograph, the journal, and the amulet as my guides, I knew my next steps were clear. The Keeper's lair awaited, a confrontation demanding all of my newfound knowledge, strength, and determination. The shadows might conspire, and the curse might resist, but armed with the stories of the past, the power of the amulet, and the resolve to break the curse, I was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Leaving the chapel behind, I stepped once again onto the winding paths of Necropolis, each footstep carrying me closer to the heart of the cemetery. The sun's golden rays bathed the gravestones, casting long shadows that seemed to stretch toward me, as if urging me forward. The journey was far from over, but with the photograph and the journal, I was armed with the keys to unveil the Keeper's secrets and put an end to its reign of darkness. My resolve remained unshaken despite the growing intensity of the shadows coiling around me. The bald man's words echoed in my mind, shadows conspiring against me, and I knew the Keeper of Souls would not relinquish its dominion without a fierce battle. As I navigated the labyrinthine paths, following the symbols and guidance from the journal, I felt an undeniable connection to the Abaddon family's story. Their journal provided insights into the Keeper's vulnerabilities, its origins, and the rituals that had perpetuated its curse. I couldn't help but wonder if their spirits were guiding us in our shared quest for liberation. Perhaps their souls were looking for redemption, or maybe it was to free themselves only. Either way, their presence was felt. Finally, I stood before a massive, ancient oak tree located behind the chapel in Necropolis. Its gnarled branches stretched toward the sky like skeletal fingers, and its roots seemed to delve deep into the earth, binding it to the very heart of the cemetery. This was the place, the site of the Keeper's lair. With the amulet around my neck and the journal in hand, I approached the tree. The ground beneath me trembled, and the air grew heavy with a sense of anticipation. Shadows converged around the oak, coiling like serpents, as if they were a part of the Keeper itself. Whispers echoed all around me as I opened the journal to a specific page, revealing an incantation that held the key to summoning the Keeper. As I spoke the incantation, the air crackled with energy, and the earth itself seemed to respond. The ground shook, and the roots of the oak tree started to writhe and contort, as if reacting to an ancient memory. A maelstrom of shadows swirled around me, and the air grew colder with each passing moment. From the depths of the oak, a figure began to materialize, the grotesque, twisted form that exuded malevolence and suffering. The Keeper of Souls had awoken, its eyes burning with a fiery intensity that held centuries of torment. Its voice resonated within my mind, a cacophony of whispers and screams that threatened to overwhelm me. It spoke a language I couldn't understand, but its tone was undeniably enraged. Yet I held fast, my grip on the journal unyielding. The amulet's glow pulsed, pushing back against the Keeper's darkness, while the journal's words provided a shield of understanding. The keeper's voice became a cacophony of rage and fear, and its form flickered as if unable to fully manifest in the presence of the amulet's light. With each word I spoke from the journal, the keeper's screams grew louder, its form wavering like a mirage. I recited the rituals that the Abaddons had written in case things got out of control, each incantation weakening the keeper's grip on Necropolis. The ancient oak trembled, its roots writhing as if trying to escape the curse that had entangled it for centuries. The entire cemetery began to shake, as if the souls it held were about to burst from their confines. The ground shook, the air became vibrant with emotion, and the whispers around me turned into shrieks of terror. Then, as the crescendo of incantations reached its climax, I held the photograph aloft, the image of Molly Abaddon's face radiating a warm light. The keeper's screams turned into desperate howls, and its form began to unravel, its shadowy tendrils recoiling as if repelled by the photograph's illumination. With a final, resounding incantation, the photograph ignited with a burst of fire. The flames danced, consuming the image and transforming it into a brilliant inferno that defied the darkness engulfing me. The keeper's form shuddered, its cries becoming shrill and agonized as the flames intensified. As the flames engulfed the image, the journal's pages began to glow with an otherworldly light. The words on the pages blurred, then transformed into tendrils of fire that encircled the keeper. The curse that had bound it for so long was unraveling, its malevolence fading as if consumed by the flames of the Abaddon family's memories. With a final thunderous roar, the Keeper of Souls disintegrated into a burst of smoke and ash, its presence vanquished by the strength of the amulet, the power of the incantations, and the sacrifice of Molly's image. The ground shook one last time, and then blindness settled over me as I felt the air growing colder, and screams began echoing in my mind. I felt as if I were on fire. I began to scream, but I couldn't hear my own voice over the screams of many souls echoing in my mind. Suddenly, everything stopped. I can't remember what happened, but eventually, I found myself lying in an empty field of grass. I felt a throbbing pain in my head and was overcome with fatigue. I got up to examine my surroundings. The terrain was the same one Necropolis once stood on, but it was now devoid of everything apart from grass, flowers, rocks, and a few trees. The amulet and all the other objects I had obtained from Necropolis were no longer with me. Nothing but the memories of Necropolis remained. It was all over now. Had I freed the souls from their torment? There was no way for me to be sure, but after all that I had gone through, I hoped that I had. Several weeks had passed since these events, and my life had taken a turn for the better. I had made new friends and found a job that paid well, not as generously as the money Mr. Damien had promised, but at least this time, the rules I was given made no mention of malevolent creatures.